Okay, time to bring everybody in. Here we go. Let's see if I can figure out how to get everybody. Oh, there we are. It's like the Brady Bunch.
It is. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Rory.
Good to see you. Welcome back home.
Good to be here.
Such a big weekend.
And very nice to meet you, Tyler. This is our first encounter.
Oh, Rick, it's an absolute pleasure. You're doing the Lord's work, sir.
Well,
big fan of the truckers.
Yeah.
They were done dirty.
Yeah. Well, it's a privilege to have all of you here tonight. So, and Lori, thank you for bringing everyone together.
That's what I do. I bring people together. And, I wanted to bring, of course, the audience already knows Caleb Maupin from the Center for Political Innovation and RT Television. He was on a couple of weeks ago. But I wanted to bring Tyler on as well, who's also with CPI and spent the weekend in Washington, D.C., helping them. They were a co-sponsor of the Rage Against War Machine rally and had a great after-party event Sunday night. But I wanted to bring Tyler in just to kind of balance the panel because, as you know, CPI is like a communist organization. And we had a good long talk with Caleb recently about where he comes from. He comes from a leftist point of view. But Tyler is a reformed Republican. He's a recovering Republican.
Long time ago.
Who found Marxism and found his place in the world. So I thought it'd be an interesting balance on this panel to have sort of the left and right, because that was the whole point of Rage Against War, besides stopping the war, obviously. But it was about building a coalition of people all across the political spectrum. I'm a libertarian. Rick's kind of a, I don't know, what the heck are you, Rick?
Nobody can peg me anymore. I'm beginning to wonder myself.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm excited about having the conversation though, because I think this kind of falls into the same sort of discussion that we've had about like the People's Party of Canada and how that came out of the Conservative Party of Canada. But the real growth since the creation of the party has really come more from the left side of the political spectrum, the Greens and the New Democrats, which are, that's a socialist party. Both of those are socialist parties. So they've lost people and they've come over to the PPC. So the PPC now is this hybrid conservative socialist organization. But I think the thing that has galvanized everyone is civil liberties issues. And so I'm not sure what it is that converted you, Tyler, but I'm eager to find out.
Can you tell us just kind of briefly? I know we talked about it in a recent interview, but since the Maverick audience is new to you, can you explain your political journey a little bit?
Sure. I'll try to make it quick. I could string it out into hours, but let's try to do it in a minute or two. I was raised in rural Missouri. My first political memories was my dad yelling about Bill Clinton. My dad's a Southern Baptist evangelist. So that's my first exposure to politics. In my teenage years, in this area, every single person's a Republican. So to rebel, I thought I'd see what these Democrats were all about. But I remember when I was 17, the war in Iraq, I wasn't politicized at all. And I remember feeling glad that George Bush won in 2004 because I feel that's really valuable because I know what it's like to be totally propagandized by the media. I was just a terrified 17-year-old, don't change horses midstream. Who knows what horrible things could happen. Once I got to college, I went to a conservative Christian university, and there were actually two of us in the Democrat club in 2008. And I debated on stage for Barack Obama. The dean was in the front row. It was terrifying. I was shaking through the whole thing. You can watch it online. I wouldn't, but you could. And then he sold us all out. He kicked 5 million people that looked just like him out of their homes. He said he was the only person standing between Wall Street and the pitchforks. Michael Hudson quotes that a lot. And he just continued to sell us out. Continued to sell us out. But they kept calling him a socialist. And I was like, there's no there's no way this guy is this. Everybody's saying it. I have the kind of personality. I'm a rebellious high school teacher. If you tell me not to look into something, the first thing I'm going to do is look into it. So they kept calling Obama a socialist on Fox News. I go, let's look up this socialism thing, see what it's all about. And lo and behold, the more I read about it, I was like, well, holy hell, this is why they didn't want us to look into this thing. It prioritizes the working class. It says money is the root of all evil, at least the wealthy having it, right? And keeping it in a degree to where it exploits and hurts the everyday common man. And, I'm raised in a place where the median income is $29,000 a year. So I see that very well. And I just kept looking. Lo and behold, this guy Bernie Sanders emerges, and he calls himself a socialist. So I go, well, maybe this is all coming together here. I supported Bernie. I supported Julian Assange even more. Julian Assange risked his freedom to prove that the Democrats stabbed Bernie in the back at the 0 hour. And Bernie should have marched on Washington like we did this weekend. And he could have changed politics in America once and for all. But he prioritized his career above doing the right thing, in my opinion. In the meantime, I kept learning. And of all the people I looked into, Caleb had the absolute best, clearest ideas. The more and more I looked into Marxism and communism, I realized that the greatest conspiracy theory in American history is that communism has never worked and it's totally evil and they just round everybody up and kill them. I kept finding, the more I dug in, the more I realized that was an absolute lie. And if it was translated into the American context, I thought it could really help the working class in this country. But before I gave up on electoral politics altogether, I decided I'd support Bernie one last time. Lo and behold, Obama made a few phone calls at the 0 hour. It's coming full circle. Stabbed Bernie in the back once and for all. And lo and behold, he told me to go vote for Joe Biden. So I was pretty much completely done at that point. I was raised a Christian. It was becoming clear to me that politics and Christianity could merge. And for me, that was coming out as a communist and joining an organization to where I wouldn't waste my time with my organizational efforts, my energy. And for me, of all the organizations in America, the best one doing that in a real way is the Center for Political Innovation, headed by my man, Caleb Maupin down here.
Yeah, that's what I love about Caleb and CPI and what you guys are doing. Even though I'm not a communist, I am absolutely in awe of the activism that you do. And for example, just this past weekend, you guys jumped on board when you heard about the Rage Against the War Machine rally. You stepped up and said, hey, we want to co-sponsor this. And thankfully, they welcomed you, because I was a little concerned about that. I thought they'd be scared of you because you're communists, right? And they're like, oh, we can't work with them. But they extended the hand of friendship. And I know that there were some bumps in the road on the way to Washington, D.C. But it all worked out in the end. And you had a beautiful rally. It stayed entirely peaceful, as far as I'm aware, on Sunday. Great turnout. Sure, it could have been more, but this is a point I want to make, because a lot of people are complaining about the crowd size, and they're like, "Oh, there was only a couple hundred people," and I really don't know how many people showed up. I would guesstimate well over 1,000, maybe a couple 3,000 from the aerial shots I saw. But it's something important to remember about this. The face of activism is changing in the 21st century, certainly in the post-COVID era. We do everything online these days. Everything is live streamed. The revolution is televised. It's live streamed. And in this crap economy, a lot of people just couldn't afford to travel to DC. I probably saw thousands of people online saying, oh, I wish I could be there, but I can't fly to Washington, DC. And flying's a hassle these days.
Well, we just on our small platform here, across the different social media channels, we probably had 35,000 viewers, maybe
Awesome.
40,000 total.
And that's just one channel,
Yeah.
and several channels were live streaming it. And I think the virtual turnout, of course, was obviously way higher than the physical turnout. We still need physical bodies there when we do a protest. It's important that, people out there see a large crowd on the news, but, people are participating online, virtually, and they showed their support. Every person who watched the rally, every person who clicked the like button or sent a donation or, lifted a fist in solidarity with you. I think that actually makes the total participation probably in the millions.
I think that's accurate.
And that's what's most important. It's not all important, the number of feet you have on the ground physically.
Yeah, the consciousness is there.
Well, and the fact that they could get those numbers that they got after there was an online, I mean, we all saw it. I went off social media for the last week before the rally. They pulled out all the stops to make people afraid to go to this rally.
They sure did.
If you were a leftist, you were hit with all kinds of people telling you this was a racist, white supremacist, Ku Klux Klan rally. You were a libertarian. They pulled out all the stops to try and tell you this was a rally to support Russian imperialism and communism and
pedophiles.
And all of this. And
we straightened that out with Scott Ritter the other night for 2 and 3 hours.
Yeah, a few years from now, we'll have the release. There'll be some documents leaked, or we'll just get it through the Freedom of Information Act, and we'll find out that the Pentagon troll farm decided this rally shouldn't happen. And the funny thing was, there were a lot of these leftist groups that were denouncing the rally, and they're saying, "Oh, we've been having rallies for years." Yeah, no one's noticed. This rally was far more of a threat to the status quo than the kind of routine small protests that are called by the Answer Coalition, all the time that no one even notices. I mean, the status quo was terrified to have Tulsi Gabbard, Judge Napolitano, Dennis Kucinich. I mean, there were a lot of very prominent people that represented a wing of the power structure that doesn't want to go along with pushing toward World War III with Russia. And that's why they went all out against this rally. If a group of isolated fringe leftists, they do something, nobody notices. It's like, what's that whole thing about if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to hear it, did it really make a noise? These kind of fringe leftists that have their kind of routine protests, they do it all the time and no one notices. But this was not that. This was a section of the status quo. And it took bravery to do it. Since January 6th, there's been a huge amount of intimidation against, people within the government structure that are critical of the way Joe Biden is leading things and critical of the low-wage police state. I mean, we remember how long they had those big barricades around Capitol Hill, and there was a huge amount of effort to prevent this rally. I mean, I heard from some of the organizers like Nick Brana what the Parks Police made them go through, how every little bit of equipment had to be sniffed by bomb-smelling dogs 12 hours before the rally started, all kinds of stupid nonsense they had to go through. They did everything they possibly could to prevent this rally, but it happened. It was peaceful. It was a broad coalition of different speakers, different opinions, different voices. And, it's really a shame that Scott Ritter couldn't be there, but we hosted him. We had him at our reception. We had a reception just 3 blocks away from the White House, maybe 2 blocks away from the White House. We were right near the closing rally, and it was standing room only. That room was only supposed to hold 100 people. It was 150 people, and you saw them chanting, "Scott, Scott, Scott, Scott." We, this was a great moment. This was a great moment for the American people and their democratic struggles against the imperialists and the monopolists. So I'm really, really glad that CPI was able to make our great contribution. And we were definitely noticed. People took note of the fact that we were there, that our people came from all over the country. People flew in, like Tyler, who flew in from Missouri, and people flew in from Texas, and people drove down from Boston. And I mean, we pulled out all the stops, even though, it was a coalition. It wasn't totally our thing. We made a point of doing everything we could to get all our people into town to show that this was an important thing and that this was more important than your typical anti-war rally. This was something really, really special. We wanted to be there. And the fact that we could have, give some free food, we had free food at our reception. So people came and got to chill out with Scott Ritter and the Uhuru movement and others, at our reception. That was our contribution. And it was appreciated by the organizers.
Absolutely awesome. And I know that, of course, you guys drew some heat this weekend, as you would expect, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I just wanted to show you guys a quick clip of how the mainstream left-wing media covered the protests this weekend. First of all, you didn't see much coverage, but when they did, you got crap like this from Rachel Maddow on
I'm excited to see
MSNBC.
that. I don't watch MSNBC, so this will be a first for me.
Oh boy, you're gonna love this.
And I mean truly random
Wrap
rally
in.
on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. A rally in support of Russia, I guess, given all the Russian flags, at least a rally against the U.S. supporting Ukraine in trying to stand up against the Russian invasion of their country. This was a tiny event. It was small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. There were Proud Boys there. There were some of the white supremacist groups you'd recognize from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago. Also represented prominently the remains of the bizarre Lyndon LaRouche cult. There were a lot of people with Russian flags, also the occasional flag of the former Soviet Union. Also, at least one person who guest hosts for Tucker Carlson on the Fox News Channel was there as a featured speaker. There were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists, a lot of them. There were cryptocurrency promoters. It was a really weird group. It was a small rally and a weird one. But that's what it looks like. That's the assemblage of short straws and split ends and loose change and loose electrons that's advocating in this country that Russia's in the right in this war and America should be on Putin's side as he keeps invading other countries. I mean, no disrespect to the Americans who turned out as part of this small event this weekend, but it's not like they represent a big constituency that is arguing for this pro-Russia point of view.
Oh Lordy. Oh Lordy. Who
Oh
wants
man,
to take that one?
how am I going to respect myself after Rachel said that about me?
I know.
The liberal
If I had
condescension.
like $5 for every time she said small and weird, she could have bought me a nice steak dinner tonight. It's small and it's weird and it's pro-Russia and they've got Soviet flags. Oh my God.
Loose
Whatever
electrons.
side she's
I like
on,
that.
just I'm going to be on the other side.
Loose electrons.
It's just a
Loose
collection of
electrons.
labels. You know, she labels people, right? You know, if you question anything the government says or anything Big Pharma says, you're a vaccine conspiracy theorist. And she's told her audience, there's a group of people, they're called vaccine conspiracy theorists. Those are bad people, right? And that you know, Tucker Carlson, he does shows on Fox News. He's a bad person. And this was all just, you know, if you've been, you know, already psyched up by her show to just dehumanize and hate people of a different perspective, she just threw all the dog whistles to her audience, right? Oh, these are vaccine conspiracists. These are cryptocurrency promoters. These are all the people I've told you over and over again are bad people. They were there. That's what she was saying, you know,
and only a few of them, you know, just a little tiny, small fringe minority with unacceptable views.
Well, you know, she called us loose electrons. I dabbled in chemistry, and loose electrons are necessary for another piece of matter to connect to that piece of matter. And that's what those people there were. For there to be any sort of fusion of politics in this country, to build anything that won't just scoff at the working class on MSNBC, you're going to need a few loose electrons. Okay? And I'm proud to be one, Rachel.
You know, why doesn't Rachel Maddow do this to a Black Lives Matter rally? At Black Lives Matter rallies, you had people with communist flags. You had people, you know, promoting conspiracy theories. You know, you had, one could look into the beliefs of the Nation of Islam and criticize them about where white people came from and stuff, and Minister Farrakhan. And, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, you could play this game. What she just did to this rally, you could do to any mass political gathering, you know? The LaRouche folks, I'm not a member of their organization, and we have some disagreements. I see things in terms of Marxism, but they're good folks. But, you know, they were at all
people.
they were at all the Trump rallies. They were at all the when Obama was first running. They would go to his rallies and pass out their stuff. So is she going to criticize those rallies because the LaRouche people were there? I mean, this is just and again, does she actually want to get into what they believe? No, she just puts a label on them. This is how people operate, and it's unfortunate. And And it's this cancel culture game where it's like every person there is therefore responsible for the views of every other person there, which you can't have a big political gathering if that's the case. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just like, it's like every person there had their own unique perspective. There were a wide variety of political groups involved. And so the idea of holding every person there accountable for the views of every other person there, that's just silly. Just silly.
Some of the wisest, smartest, kindest people I've ever met are in the LaRouche organization and the Schiller Institute. Look up World Land Bridge. Google World Land Bridge and see if that seems like a cultish idea. It's like the future of humanity. So I resent that she doesn't know anything about what she's talking about there.
I just had to show you these. I don't know if you saw it. There's some great memes that have already been born from the rally. I don't know if you guys saw this one. This was posted by the good people at the Oregon Libertarian Party, who I think made the meme. Hello, fellow anti-war protesters. I don't know. I think I wasn't there on the ground. And of course, this is photoshopped. You guys probably remember this photo was taken a couple of years ago at the protest to free the January 6th people who were incarcerated.
Interesting.
Yeah. And these guys were obviously not Trump supporters, which is why they stood out like a turd in a punch bowl at that rally.
So this is not actually from this.
No, this is
rally.
not from Sunday. This
so
is
that's called fake news. Where's the disinformation label?
And somebody photoshopped as a joke, of course, the
but
Russian
I want to see.
flags.
I mean, they're trying to make it sound like these people were at the rally. I want to see the disinformation label. I want this to, get suppressed. I want everyone who shares this meme to get a notice from Facebook. But I guess they're not doing that for some reason. So there you go.
Rick, Lori, before I forget, you guys may have been around a little bit more than me, but during the rallies against the Vietnam War, did anyone ever have a Vietnamese flag?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So those rallies were totally infiltrated and completely pointless then.
Good point. Good
point.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, people used to chant, ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, the NLF is going to win. One side's right, one side's wrong. Victory to the Viet Cong.
That's just because Ho Chi Minh had bought off the entire American public, Caleb. That's why.
Yeah.
That must be it. He was paying everybody to be there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you guys your perspective because you were there on the ground in DC Sunday, but the people who showed up with the Russian flags, seems to me the ones that I saw interviewed were there organically because they actually just support Russia, that they were not federal plants trying to make it look bad. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I know a few people that waved Russian flags, and they're very honest, upfront people that are, that's what they believe. They support Russia, and that it's important, I would think, at a time when we're being told to hate Russia, that Russia is our mortal enemy, that Russia is pure evil. It's important to have it on the public record that, look, there are lots of Americans who support Russia. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's a great thing to do. That's what I
loved
think.
it.
100%. I mean, I'll put my integrity on the line. I know at least the one person of our organization that I saw there, a great guy.
Yes.
Great
absolutely.
guy, literally a doctor. Okay. Like and that was totally organic. It wasn't part of our organization. We didn't meet in the morning. We met and said a prayer in the morning to God that our meeting would go well.
Yeah.
But we weren't like, now everybody grab a Russian flag. Get out there, boys.
Just
that
kidding.
never happened. But for people to hate Russia or, to even act like it's crazy to have a Russian flag at such an event, it would be crazy for there not to be a Russian flag at that event.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have minded to see some Ukrainian flags there, but I didn't see any. Did you guys see any?
No.
I did not see a single Ukrainian flag. I saw a couple of folks up by the White House when you guys marched to the White House. There was a group of pro-Ukrainian, I don't know, counter-protesters, I guess, pro-war, claiming to be anti-war. But they were there with some Ukrainian flags. I didn't see them, though, at the Lincoln Memorial.
Well, I mean, look, I think that rallies like this are always going to have a wide variety of perspectives included. There's going to be different people and different views. And let's keep in mind that right now they are doing everything they can to incite sections of the anti-war movement against each other. And they did it endlessly in the lead up to this rally, with Scott Ritter and with all kinds of, other drama. And they're doing it now afterwards. It scares them that there's been any kind of coalition. What they want is for people to fight with each other. That's what they want. And so, scapegoating and blaming different people, and that's part of their game. And let me add, let's say that there was not a single Russian flag at this rally. Let's pretend there was not a single one. Do you think Rachel Maddow would have said, wow, well, I thought we were all pro-Russia traitors who were against the country, but I guess I was wrong. I didn't see a single Russian flag. Do you think she would have done a positive segment? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They would have found something else to complain about, right?
Exactly.
You don't gain any points from trying to appease the haters. You don't. You just look weak at the end of the day, and that, the fact that we were bold enough to be out there with Russian flags. Let me tell you a story. This is not about Russian flags, but there was a protest I did years ago against the movie Red Dawn. Do you remember when the movie Red Dawn came out? Yeah. It was the remake, the one about North Korea invading the United States, the one they remade a few years ago. And, we protested that movie because we saw it as a war propaganda film against North Korea. It was a very small protest. Only about 12 people came, but we brought North Korean flags. And you know what? I have never seen more coverage of a protest in my life. We were in National Review. We were on North Korean television. We were on German television. We were like, it shocked, the mainstream media. Oh my God, they're out there in front of the movie theater in Times Square with North Korean flags. It was a really, really big deal.
I remember that.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to grab people's attention. Sometimes you have to be bold. And so, we were very, very, it was a smart move. And honestly, and there were some people who said, oh, Caleb, why didn't you just bring signs that said peace on the Korean Peninsula? Because it was a small rally, right? The point was, we weren't out there trying to mobilize a huge coalition of thousands of people. That was a small rally. And we were trying to communicate that North Korea does have friends in America. And so we did, right? And if anything, we know that, that the avalanche of war propaganda is huge, but to put on the record that there's a crowd of people, there are Americans among the anti-war movement who are on the side of the Russians, that do support the Russians, I think that's a noble thing to do, and if people had an issue, they could have called us beforehand. They could have called other people beforehand and said, don't do this. Nothing like that was done. I didn't hear anything about this. I did not hear a single complaint until afterwards. So,
that's something I wanted to ask you about.
And
I did want to ask you about this because there was some controversy. They had a static camera in front of the stage, and that was the live feed that we took here on Maverick News for most of the day. And earlier on in the day, like these pictures I'm showing on the screen, like for instance, when Jimmy Dore was speaking, you had someone behind him with the flag of Russia. And at some point, I know, and some people were walking by with the old Soviet flag too behind the camera. And I noticed that at some point those flags disappeared. They went away, and somebody got an American flag and planted it front and center in the middle. Mm-hmm. And after that, we didn't see the Russian flag or the Soviet flag behind the podium again. Can you tell me what happened there? Because I know CPI had to issue an apology about that the next day.
Oh, we just wanted to make clear there was some innuendo that we had tried to plant the flag there to embarrass somebody or something like that. We just wanted to make clear that's not the case. But we're not embarrassed to have had Russian flags. Mm-hmm. We're not ashamed of that, and we do that. We've done that for months. We did that at our rally in Austin. We did that at our rally in
Chicago.
Chicago. We do that all the time. So if people, we were sponsors, we were listed, we were in touch. And if people wanted to come to us and say, don't bring Russian flags, they should have done that beforehand. Yep. And, if somebody was standing someplace, they shouldn't have stood or something like that. We apologize for any confusion, but we're not ashamed to have Russian flags. Ryan is a great, beloved member of our organization. We're very proud to have him in the group. I'm going to have him on my YouTube channel later this week. We're going to have an interview with the man with the Russian flag.
Cool.
you know, and
Well,
look, we're not backing down from that at all. We have no problem with people doing that. I guess the innuendo was that somehow this was some kind of sinister operation by CPI to do something, and we wanted to make clear to the organizers that wasn't the case, and that, look, if there was some confusion, if people didn't want somebody to stand somewhere, we obviously didn't want to step on anybody's toes. But
So
it wasn't some kind of big apology. We were just clarifying, look, we didn't know that there was an issue with somebody standing somewhere. But honestly, I mean, I'll say this, not to be rude here, but I know when Barack Obama gives a speech, they are very careful about who stands behind him. Not anyone
Yeah.
can walk behind Barack Obama when
There were
You
no
know?
Russian flags at Biden's Poland speech.
Yeah,
Somehow
and
they
so
prevented
if this was that big of an issue for them, if they were so upset with one member of our group who brought his own Russian flag standing someplace, maybe they should have had better security and organizing about the shot. Because again, we didn't hear anything about this until after this was long over. So,
Okay,
I
I
mean,
stand corrected. I thought that there was some kind of,
No.
backstage drama behind the scenes
No.
while the rally was in progress. I thought
absolutely
maybe
not.
I thought one of the
didn't know a thing
speakers
about this.
was uncomfortable with the optics.
I would just like
Nobody-
to add,
Yeah, go on, Tyler.
Go ahead,
Rick, I
Tyler.
was listening to you earlier, and you were talking about Putin's speech and how you found it kind of mind-boggling that the former Soviet Union is now more committed to traditional values than the United States. And I call myself a conservative communist. That popped in my mind once, and I realized if you ever wanted communism in America, it would have to have conservative traditional values. Okay, and that's what I think Russia and China are sort of building that in reality. I think they know that it would catch on here with the working class. If you were like, hey, if we should have a government at all, it should help you and not the global elite in Davos planning the digital currency and the end of your personal property forever. I think they know. And so, I mean, but we know in our community, and a lot of people organically support what Putin's building. So of course those flags are going to be there. It's just goofy to think that they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it wasn't us. Like I said, we didn't have a prayer and then say, grab your Russian flag and get in there, boys. That never happened.
Yeah, and we stand by our member. He's a great guy. He had just as much right to be there with whatever side he wanted as anybody else. We stand behind our member. We apologize only for any confusion there was with the organizers, any feeling that we shouldn't have been in some place or something like that. That's what we apologize for. But as far as we had the right to be there with our flags, and that's that. So
I'm glad you cleared that up. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I'm just, an anti-war rally is a difficult thing to strike a balance with, right? Because you do have so many people with different points of view, and even just taking an anti-war stance could be perceived as being pro one side or the other, because a ceasefire might give one side an advantage militarily over another. So how, when you were organizing this, did you reconcile all of those things, or did you lay out any ground rules in advance, or give it more thought, or was it just sort of organic?
I mean, we were in touch with the organizers, and as far as we were concerned, we were sponsors of it. The president of CPI, Elizabeth, she spoke at the closing rally at the White House, and she gave a glowing message. And people were invited to come to our reception afterwards, and we had a great reception afterwards. The Uhuru movement that is under attack by the FBI, they were represented. Scott Ritter was there. The Korean Friendship Association was represented there. There were different podcasters and streamers and others who were there who gave remarks, and it was a great gathering. And I mean, I think it was a very successful day, and I wish people would realize that our enemies very much, they want to look for any opportunity to sow division. And they were going to call this rally Nazi and fascist and fringe and evil and pro-Russian, and they were going to call it
no matter what.
Rachel
That's true.
Maddow.
No matter what you did,
No matter what.
you couldn't
No
make them
matter
happy.
what.
You should
Yeah,
accept
so
that
We're not
going
going
in.
to support you.
Yeah, and that this is the thing. The internet hating, I mean, we've learned with the cancel culture, you cannot please these people. You cannot. So
True.
stop trying. Stop trying, you know, defend politics that you can explain coherently. You know what I mean? If you understand what you believe in and you can explain it coherently and you can defend it, do it that way. Put forward what you believe. Don't try to walk the line and appease people, because at the end of the day, you can't. I mean, there is no answer to hate. And yeah, there you go.
You know, speaking of hate, I hate to even bring this up, but there's another controversy I'd like to address in the aftermath of all this. There's a fellow who's pretty well known in the neo-Nazi movement in America named Matt Heimbach. He was involved in a brawl at the Charlottesville disaster back in, 2017. Former member of Adam Waffen, proud neo-Nazi. And then he apparently had a change of heart and converted to communism, he claims. And then he showed up at the rally on Sunday with a Soviet flag. And unfortunately, that set off quite a firestorm on Twitter and on social media, so that people could demonize the rally and say that, oh, look, they've got, neo-Nazis with them. And it was bad enough to have communists, but now we have fascists and neo-Nazis. And I did see him standing over there with his little group of friends. And they looked, I don't know what to make of it all. What do you guys think?
That has nothing to do with us. That has nothing to do with Jimmy Dore. That has nothing to do with Max Blumenthal.
I have no idea who that guy is. Never heard of him until just now.
Wow.
Yeah, this is dumb. You know what I mean? And it's like, what did they expect the organizers of this rally to do? To stand there and get a biography of every person who walked in, or you set up a gate at the front of the rally. All right, now, what have you done in your entire life? What have you posted on Twitter?
Let me see your social media profile.
This guy who was at Charlottesville showed up at something that has nothing to do with, that's ridiculous.
Well, that's right. It's a free country.
I joked that we need to buy the big book of American fascists, so we can look through all the pictures before letting anybody in the door. I didn't know about this guy. Oh, page 87. No, I mean,
and it doesn't really surprise me that you don't know who he is, but a lot of people do know who he is. And so I'd like to play a little bit of this interview.
A lot of people really know who he is, though.
I've never seen E.T., so I'm not going to know who this guy is.
You guys know Ford Fisher, right? He's a photojournalist there in Washington, D.C. Ford did some really great coverage. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of this interview that they did with Heimbach, because it's really interesting. He's an interesting cat. And I want to see what you guys think of him. See if you think his conversion to communism is genuine. Some are trying to determine, is he a Fed? Was he there to make the rally look bad? Did the Feds send him? Or was he really, truly there of his own accord, genuinely sorry for his previous involvement with neo-Nazi groups and truly believes in the cause of communism? I'd like to get your take on that, you guys.
Okay.
So when I realized that, I obviously could no longer looking at you.
Do you feel like guilt or regret over the harm you've caused?
The biggest thing is when it comes to politics, the biggest thing is when it comes to politics, you learn, you grow, you develop, right? So for myself, politically, it's been a journey of developing towards a patriotic socialist, an internationalist perspective of avoiding petty nationalism, bourgeois nationalism, and ideologies that are defending the capitalist system, and instead being revolutionary. And there's a way that you do this, kinds of James Connolly, right? That really speak to me. So I'm sorry. Oh, you're good, bud.
Matt, what are you doing here?
I'm against the war, bro.
I think the last time I filmed you, folks with you were carrying swastikas and so forth.
A little bit, yeah.
I'm sure you're a little familiar with the history, but usually this symbol and Nazis haven't had the greatest relationship.
World War II was a bit of a hiccup between the two sides, right? But anyway, for myself, I really came to the conclusion that the problem with fascism is that you end up never achieving workers' liberation, right? Like the Sturmballon, the SA in Germany, or the Phalangists in Spain under Franco, they were promised that they were going to get socialist revolution, right? The workers were going to get justice. We were going to have the means of production in the hands of the people. And then what happens is the leaders always end up getting shot, right? Like the Falange gets sent to the Blue Division to die in the Soviet Union, and Franco ends up turning over Spain to the United States and to the Catholic Church and to the bankers. So if that happens every time in fascism, then I came to the conclusion that I could either remain a fascist, and the best I could hope for is get brought into a room one day after political victory, and then you ask for the workers to get their just due, and you get shot in the head or sent to a prison camp. Or I had to reevaluate my political ideology, and I realized that Marxist-Leninist thought answers the problems that I had with the capitalist system, but actually has real solutions that have manifested themselves in real life.
Okay. So, and I see this symbol. It looks like you're branding yourself a patriotic socialist rather than a national socialist.
Yes. Well, patriotic socialism, of course, was the ideology of the Soviet Union that believed that you could go ahead and have identity, right? But it's socialism in one country, and there's a fraternity of peoples where there is no chauvinism and there's no jingoism. There's instead solidarity between members of the proletariat. So patriotic socialism has been, what motivates Irish Republicans. It, supports Palestinians, all people fighting against occupation of the capitalist imperialist system.
There have been people who have been criticizing this event by saying essentially that it's going to attract fascists. I know you just said you're not a fascist anymore, but when
like
people see this, they're going to go, there's a guy in a siege mask with you. You're purporting to be leftist now, but a lot of people are probably going to look at this and go, this is Matt and a bunch of neo-Nazis using slightly more lefty language.
Well, I mean, but the problem is their definition of fascism is so broad, right? Like the idea of a fascist in the modern American society is like, what are your thoughts on abortion, right? So like someone's Catholic grandma who might be pro-life is identified as being a fascist. When you look at actual socialism as it's manifested, whether it's in Vietnam, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, whether it's Palestinian liberation movements, whether it's in Ireland, there is always a nationalist sentiment that's based on patriotic socialism, not bourgeois nationalism. So, I think ideological evolution and growth, to be able to speak with people across ethnic boundaries, cultural boundaries, and to fight for a free world for all working people, isn't that where we all want to be? Right? Instead of dividing ourselves unfairly.
Do you think you're essentially aligned with this event? Like, I know we're kind of on the outskirts, but do you intend to join up with it?
Well, I think this event, there's everyone from libertarians to, folks who are part of a variety of different organizations. And we can all agree on one thing. We don't want our children to grow up where DC looks like Fallout 3. Right? Like, we don't want to have nuclear war. We don't want further escalation between nuclear powers. And we oppose American imperialism and NATO creating conflicts, stoking conflicts, and risking the entire human race.
Do you not see Russia as the aggressor in this particular conflict?
No, of course not. Because if the United States had actually followed through with our treaties and our promises to the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union fell apart, we said we wouldn't extend NATO. And we consistently have done that over the past 30 years. We have brought troops and missiles and tanks and bombs to Russia's doorstep. And ever since the Western-backed coup in 2014 and the deaths that have been done by American-supported Ukrainian forces in Donetsk and Luhansk, right? What option did they have other than to defend themselves geopolitically, but also to defend ethnic Russians that speak Russian, that are Russian Orthodox? And when we see in Ukraine, when Zelensky is looking to not only ban the Russian Orthodox Church, he's imprisoning clergy, he's seizing church buildings and monasteries and relics, and is looking to make Russian Orthodoxy illegal in the entire country. This is a religious war, it's a cultural war, and it's a political war against the people of Eastern Ukraine that have only ever wanted to go home.
I'm sure that people watching this are going to be curious. Kind of last thing, if you're willing to answer. You obviously used to have a negative opinion on Jewish people.
Uh-huh.
Do you still?
Well, I'm very Zionist because Zionism is based on imperialism and exploitation.
Yeah, Lori,
so
can you stop this interview?
I dislike.
Can you just stop this interview? We have nothing to say about this. This has nothing to do with our organization. And he said all kinds of stuff there, but if we comment on anything he said there, no matter what, it'll be interpreted as us somehow endorsing this person in his past. We have nothing to do with this. And, there are all kinds of other people that could articulate things about this. We want nothing to do with this. This has nothing to do with us. And, that's all we got to say about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. just
Yeah,
whatever.
made me kind of
you know?
uncomfortable, to say the least. He
Well,
had this little
whatever.
tattoo sticking out there, and I was like, maybe your conversion to communism is genuine. It looks like you've done some reading, but I'm not convinced until you show
Impossible
me
to
your
tell.
tattoos, buddy. Let me see those tattoos.
And I
Come
think
on,
you
what
you
got
should take like a decade cool off period, don't you?
there? Yes, exactly.
And I mean, if you think the worst thing about it is that the ideology lost, Auschwitz seems to be a worse thing to me, but that's just me. That's the one comment I wanted to make.
Absolutely. I'd rather talk about what you guys did, because tell me about your weekend and all that CPI took part in, and especially the after rally event.
Well, at the after rally event, we actually had the opportunity to have Tyler be the MC, and he did a great job. It was kind of Tyler's debut on the CPI stage. He opened with our.
Thank you.
You want to talk about the Pledge of Unity, Tyler?
Yes, we always open with the Pledge of Unity, and I said for any journalists covering this, be sure that you write down this part where it says, we pledge ourselves to build the unity of the people of the world, all races, all colors, all nationalities, all beliefs, to eliminate all traces of fascism from the earth, to build a deep and sincere international friendship among the peoples of the world, to keep a just, lasting peace, to eliminate want, frustration, and enforced idleness. We have come to confirm the unity of all people, to salute our comrades who have died, and pledge our word that skillful hands, keen brains, and bold enthusiasm shall never more be wasted in war. So if you want to tie us to the fascists, why do we repeat that at the beginning of every single meeting we ever have? Even our Zoom meetings on the weekend, that's the first thing we do. We raise our right hand and we say that pledge. So
yeah, also the room was decorated, I will add. At the front of the room, just like we did in Chicago, we had Fred Hampton on one side and John Brown on the other side. And, and we made a point.
Fascist John Brown.
Right. And we made a point of the Uhuru movement that are under attack by the FBI. And one of the things I pointed out is all these people that claim to be so woke and so concerned about the Black community, why are they not standing up for this group of Black revolutionaries who are being targeted by the American government right now and being called Russian agents? Right. We were very proud to once again have them on our stage and highlight their case. And the synthetic left has largely abandoned them. Vosh has claimed on his streams that, they're actually the same as some other group, and they did something that we don't like, and tried to get his audience to think that the FBI raids against Uhuru are somehow okay. Wow. It's really reprehensible to see how the left has abandoned one of their own. They're the African People's Socialist Party. They've been marching for over 50 years. A group of Black revolutionaries, Omali Yeshiteli, their chairman, was in the original Black Panther Party. And they're being targeted by the American government. They're facing indictment. They had their homes raided. And the so-called
that was a shocking raid. Shocking.
Yeah, the so-called left is so controlled by the American government now that they won't stand for them. Well, we at the Center for Political Innovation, we stand for them. You know what I mean? And we stand up for them.
They're the real deal.
Yeah. We support oppressed people. I'm frequently quoted in Final Call newspaper of the Nation of Islam. We have a relationship. We are an anti-racist organization through and through. And it's really unfortunate the way the media likes to take one group of people that were at this rally and try to, I think really seriously trying to blame Matt Heimbach on everyone who went to that rally. I mean, does he think Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney?
Well, they did it to the truckers, Caleb.
Exactly.
Yes,
And this
exactly.
This is the game that they play.
There's a flag out there, Caleb.
Yeah, right. There was a flag at the trucker rally, so therefore this, and it's really unfortunate. And we're not here to represent that person. And if you want to find out what that person believes, maybe you should have him on your show and ask him the questions yourself. Because
I don't think so.
Straight.
Maybe Rick would like to have him. I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious what both of you, Tyler and Caleb, think about Trump and his next, bid to become president. And